what is responsible tourism and why it is important to promote responsible tourism. So, tourism is, first of all, a business, a very important business in the world context. According to the global travel and tourism sector, contributed to a record $8.8 trillion and it's creating 319 million jobs in 2018. So something which is a big enterprise. And especially it is important because it is a big enterprise which is able to be diffused, not just concentrated in a few industrial areas, but spread and the capacity to employ many persons. Development cooperation sector, so tourism is one of the things which is important to promote because the tourism has the capacity to promote different kind of development, and it becomes a kind of development which is really possible to participate by people and participate by local communities. It's not just like petrol companies or like big industrial steels, which is in the hands of only few decision makers. So it's become a priority of international cooperation to promote development also by tourism. But tourism also, as any kind of enterprise, may have the dark side. Maybe that is pushing the development too far and actually damaging the environment, both social and cultural environment. So when tourism becomes too concentrated and too massive, like we have, for instance, two pictures of this problem where it's felt very much. One is Venice. So Venice has been very successful, but so successful that now tourism is a threat for the continuation of the existence of Venice. So, like we have the picture of the big ship coming in the middle of Venice. So now they are trying to implement laws to stop the kind of ship of coming because actually Venice is becoming just an arena for tourists. So Italian people are not able to live anymore in Venice because of too much presence of tourism. So that's something that helped at the beginning Venice to develop. It was giving a resource for the local people to remain in Venice and work, has become something that is forcing local people to get out of Venice because it's impossible for them to live in there. Big chain of hotels are taking all the houses, and the Venetian people has to leave. And the cultural heritage of Venice becomes just a museum, no more an active life, and it was so important for Italy, but no more alive because no more residents there. The other is coming from Barcelona. Barcelona is another very successful tourist destination in Europe, but again, so successful that, for instance, students who come and study in Barcelona find it difficult to rent a house, rent a flat, because they're renting them all for tourism. So this is a kind of impact, what we call it non-sustainable tourism, a tourism which is not possible to continue to develop because it's destroying the same resources on which tourism is dependent. So this is not true only for social environment, but also from the natural environment. We have the picture here of what used to be a beautiful beach, which full of garbage and full of people. So we have a social impact, we have an impact on the environment. We have to relate to the determinant of sustainability from the social side, and we have to determine of the natural side. If we want to protect the environment, we need also some tourism to give us resources for protecting the environment, like what our Kish colleagues are trying to do very well in Kish land. At the same time, we should find in a way that is sustainable. Another element is this is not the case of Iran, but it's the case of other things in the field of development activity, that sometimes tourism takes over local community. In a sense, it happened like it happened in Venice, but that is not the case. and take charge of their assets and exclude the people who remain in poor condition where the tourists live in luxury areas. So that's also another thing which creates social tension and finally becomes unsustainable. This already said it, so the impact on local residents. So, and how now also local residents try to organize themselves in order to stop the tourist flow because they are exploited and they are not able to live anymore well in their own localities. So now we have to understand what happened. Why local residents, sometimes instead of welcoming tourists, they try to contrast tourism and try to stop it. This is a number figure. Tourism has so been successful that it's constantly growing. But how to balance it? So started the idea of responsible tourism. What we mean by responsible tourism? A tourism which uses the resources of tourism, which are the environment, the culture, the social life, but helps in sustaining it. It gives some resource, some financial means for those who protect their heritage in order to protect it. But that requires a number of criteria. That is what we call it responsible. So require that local communities, tourist enterprises, and policymakers design the right approach. So do not just let tourism happen without any regulation. So, but design the right balance between the presence of tourism and not too much presence of tourism, between employing the locals but not making them all employed of the tourist sector. So, and that is how we can make also different sort of destination, different sorts of itineraries, so that not all tourists are concentrated on the same spot. This activity of responsibility on managing tourism requires multi-sector cooperation between all subjects involved into the process dialogue, which is required in order to make it, that requires to create that kind of responsibility which allows tourism to be sustainable. So what are the essential elements to make it sustainable? And what is our responsibility in making it sustainable? So one is to let the local community to have their say. So it should not be a plan done just by central government or central tourist agencies, but should be something that where local communities, starting from the level of municipality and going down to the level of local area, are taken in consideration their needs and their aspirations, so they are on board. They are not just something that where we bring tourists, but something that are a process in dialogue where we have a dialogue with them to know what kind of tourism you would like, so to respond to the need of local communities. One is the human dimension, the cultural dimension, that we should know if that culture, if that community is a resource for tourism, because it has a heritage. That is the reason why tourists go and want to know about that heritage, because it becomes part of their own cultural experience. But we should have an approach that we appreciate that local heritage. So otherwise we destroy it. No? The economic dimension, sometimes it's called carrying capacity. So how many tourists can go? How many hotels we can have? If we go to nice beaches and we just build hotels, well, it's no more a nice beach. No? It's just a place where it's polluted. So it's no more a resource even for tourism industry itself. So the carrying capacity has to be considered. There should be not too little tourism, because if you just make just a protected park where you don't allow anybody to go, then your problem how you find resources for protection. If you make local communities totally deprived of external context, then how they can grow culturally? There is the right amount that it creates value, and there is more amount that destroys. Time dimension, I mean, appreciating the evolution of the time, but neither to force people to remain in all culture that they don't value anymore, just because that's the culture that the tourists want to take picture, neither to force a change in the culture that is not what they would like to change, that is going too much towards modern society. So we should find the right approach in the right culture of the people. And the environmental dimension, what we said it before, so not to pollute, not to spoil, not to ruin the same culture that is the reason why that is an important tourist resource. At the international level, there are efforts being made to promote responsible tourism also among tourists. So to make tourists themselves aware what should be their approach in order to be constructive. So you're not going just to the market and buying products. You are being hosted by a local community. So you should have that sense of respect of the local community. And you should choose destinations and you should shoot plans where this kind of respect is a part of the package. This is a way to make pressure on tourist operators and to public policy makers to say, if you make a plan, like when you buy food, you say you make a responsible choice if you buy maybe organic food, maybe if you buy food produced by countries which have respect the laws. The same way for tourism. Choose what you buy, no? And act in a certain way with the people. So when you go to a country, buy the local products. When respect the cultural manifestation of the people, like sometimes, for instance, there are people coming from different countries and they don't dress properly to respect local culture. How much energy, how much pollution is created by how much energy is used, so how much pollution is being created by the industry. Consider that. And the key element of our project, protect the heritage. So make tourism something which helps in heritage protection. Because heritage protection is not just a value for tourists, it's a value for the whole world. It's a value for the local community. So to destroy, to act in such a way, to destroy, like what happened in Venice, or what happened in Florence. I mean, that just become places of museums, but where the heritage of the culture of people, where the artists were living, where the local communities were living, where the makers of that heritage were living, actually they are not living anymore. So you have now only the old heritage of Florence, the old heritage of Venice, and not the living heritage. So if you want to make a responsible tour in Italy, we have to cooperate with organizations like the one where Enrico is coming from, where they organize such a way to promote different kind of itineraries in places where the local dialogue with local community is important, that sometimes are much more beautiful than the big historical city, but they don't have that history fame, but it's something that where the local community is still very active and very, very enterprising, and so it's also a much better experience for tourists themselves, because they see a living heritage. So we can define responsible tourism in this way, that what is responsible tourism is a tourism that makes better places for the people to live in and better places for the people to visit. So sometimes, like we've seen people protesting against tourists, but actually the tourists in that sense are interested to the same things that are interested the local people. So ruining something for the local people means also to ruining it for the tourists. So when a tourist takes responsibility to make a tourism more sustainable, so it's something that has to be done by tourists themselves. So not just for planners, not just when these things mix, when this responsibility on the side of the offer and on the side of the demand, then we create a responsibility. How to build it? We said what it is, we want to have it. So we need dialogue, because we need some cooperation that is before the market element. We need a dialogue between offer and demand to design it something which is good for both. We need a dialogue between enterprises which specifically deal with tourism and organizations which are meant to protect the environment and to protect the heritage. That's why it's very important to have a dialogue with NGOs that deal with the environment. Then we have a dialogue at the policy level, municipalities, government, and educational institutions also, because they're the ones who train the tourist industries. So they must update the problem, because if they give the old kind of training that it was given to hotel management or five-star hotel only, without keeping in mind the problems that only that kind of tourism creates, then they are not able to manage properly in a sustainable way the business. So local residents, government, tourist operators, and I would add academic institutions and training institutions need to design together a modality which is sustainable and in the interest of everybody. You know, when there are some kind of policies of, say, my interest first, which can come from a country which wants to put itself first, or it comes from a business association who wants to make our business first, you are not able even to take interest for your own country, and you are not able to make an interest for your own business, because actually the environment is connected. And only if we make common interest, we are able to make our own interest. So we must envisage that system where we say our interest first. Because if we work to our interest first, and we define who are these ours, no? Then we are able to make my interest also. If I make my interest first, then I'm not able to make our interest achievable. Because if we have everybody, every group of people making my interest first, we never arrive to common interest. If we don't arrive to a common interest, we don't have my interest also. It's true in the relationship between a couple, between the community, between the nations. It's the same logic. We know that we have a common interest, but we are not always able to work to make this common interest felt, because we make my interest first. And this is what instead with cooperation means. So there is this United Nations platform, very big, a bit confusing also, which are the Sustainable Development Goals. For us, it's important because it's the only platform which was signed by almost all the countries, surely including Iran, Italy, European Union, which give us a work package within which we can develop our own specific goals. It's a wide program, but it's one of the priorities of this international cooperation to make the world more sustainable is tourism. Why is important this program? Because something is to have human rights, but that is in theory, there is law. But this is the only working agenda we have in common. They say we sign an agenda and we sign something that we are committed to do something together, not just declaration of principle. This we committed, these nations, committed themselves to achieve certain kind of goals. It's a responsibility we sign. So it becomes a platform of cooperation. And so one of the activities that we signed that we are going to do, and our project is practical examples of we are working at it, is designing and implementing sustainable tourism policies. They create jobs and promote local culture and products. Then developing and implementing tools to monitor the impacts of development on sustainable tourism. Increasing economic benefit to small island states. Well, this is less in our case, but local communities we can send. So these is the framework within which we have a legal platform to operate. We can be critical of sustainable development goals on many aspects, and we all are. We need to be critical in order to make them more responsive to the local communities, but this is the platform that we have it on international level to justify our cooperation. So European Union is committed to support the implementation of sustainable development goals and to promote projects which can help the implementation and has given different priorities. And in the case, for instance, of cooperation, of the agreement of cooperation between the Islamic government of Iran and European Union, is tourism for cultural heritage. So cultural heritage is actually the priority. So cooperation is on cultural heritage, considered a priority, and tourism only as far as it can be a means to promote and to protect cultural heritage. So within this framework, it's our project. So our project has been presented together. We designed and presented together, and we up to the European Union. And European Union agreed, yes, this is a kind of project that it's also our project. You see, this kind of projects are in cooperation between different entities in which no one is really the decision makers and the other the one who have to obey. We designed the project together, we proposed together, European Union say, yes, we share it, only that we don't have the people to come on the ground. So we share the project, we give financial support to this project. But it's not the European Union project, it's our project, it's our group project which has presented it. Only Europeans say that it's also our project, so we are with you. So they are partnering with us. So each one of us now is not just representing the Italian organization, the Iranian organization, but is also representing European Union in its practical effort to cooperate. So in that sense, we are officers, not only of our NGOs, but we are officers of the consortium, which includes European Union as a member of it. And we designed together the objectives, in the next slides, we'll focus, and in the documentation we share, we presented, let's move ahead, more the thematic area, and which we are still at the beginning to better define. This is the brochure we have distributed, where some more detailed information you must have had about objective and activities.